And that's really sometimes where the Federation is even more important, because they have to represent themselves, they have to be well educated, and if they do take advantage of everything that the Federation offers, they can become great advocates and they can get the services their children need.
Join us for the FCSN 2022 Gala, celebrating the Special Education Revolution in Chapter 766.
It's important for the public to support the work of the Federation is because the Federation touched so many lives. There was a time when I feel that people just assumed it was kids who were in wheelchairs. But the Federation does a lot of work in a lot of different areas.
Join us in celebration as we honor community advocates and strides we have made as a community.
The Federation does fantastic work. It needs to be supported. Offers the hand that people that don't have the means to do the things they need to be done for their own family and for the system at large.
Join us virtually at 6 p.m.
Good evening. Let me begin by thanking all of you for joining us tonight for the Federation's annual gala. My name is Pam Nurse, and I am the Executive Director of the Federation for Children with Special Needs. It is my honor to welcome you to the Federation 2022 Gala, celebrating the special education revolution in 50 years of Chapter 766, Massachusetts Special Education Law. 50 years ago, Massachusetts led the nation in passing legislation providing public education for all children, including children with disabilities. Parents and advocates lent their collective voice together with attorneys, lawmakers, and education leaders to champion this groundbreaking change. The parents who led this effort, including Martha Ziegler, our first executive director, established the Federation as a voice for parents. Since then, the Federation has provided information, training, partnership, and most importantly, a community for families to work with professionals to ensure that all children, especially those with disabilities, are able to reach their potential. I know well the impact that this law made. My brother started kindergarten in the late 50s. It did not go well. His intellectual disabilities and physical challenges meant that he did not fit into our neighborhood school. By the time I started school 4 years later, my parents had to remove him from public school and send him to a private school without much of an education focus. As you can imagine, this had a profound impact on him. As a result, he never learned to read, he never played on a schoolyard, he never went to a prom. Lost opportunities because in that time and place, it was believed he was uneducable. We have moved far beyond those days, but we still struggle to ensure that every child, regardless of disability, language, race, ethnicity, or family income, is able to meet the promise of the laws that Massachusetts and then the United States passed a generation ago. The Federation is dedicated to ensuring that the right to a public education for all becomes a reality. We cannot lose the ground that others work so hard to win. Tonight, we come together to celebrate community members, advocates, and families who drove the advances that we have made in the special education revolution and to plan for the work ahead. To kick off the night, we are remembering a special education maverick, Larry Kotin. Larry was a pioneer in the field of special education law in Massachusetts. He was a founding partner of Kotin, Crabtree, and Strong, and a tireless advocate for families with children with disabilities and for the universal right to an education. Larry was one of the co-authors of Chapter 766, guaranteeing the civil right to an education for children with disabilities. Chapter 766 became the blueprint for the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, IDEA, which extended the same right to children nationwide. Joining us in a tribute to Larry is his longtime law partner, Bob Crabtree, his children, Jack Kotin and Allison Kotin, as well as Janine Solomon, the managing attorney for Mass Advocates for Children and the director of the Children's Law Support Project. Also tonight, I am joined by board member Beth Bostick, who will introduce our honorees. Please remember to donate to the Federation by scanning the QR code on your screen or by visiting fcsn.org/donate. The silent auction will close at 7:30 p.m. To participate, go to fcsn.org/gala 2022. Enjoy your night, and thank you again for joining us.
My name is Bob Crabtree, and I am now retired but off counsel at my law firm, Kotin, Crabtree and Strong, LLP. And my work, during all my working years and even now, has been focused mostly in the area of disability law and mostly in that area in special education law. And in that history, I had the great good fortune of meeting Larry Kotin in the early years and collaborating behind the scenes on what became Chapter 766 of the Acts and Resolves of 1972.
It was groundbreaking at the time. It was the first special education law in the country, and it preceded the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, the federal special education law.
Larry was working with a legislative created committee, MACE for short, and he staffed that a little bit and wrote some models based on some ideas that he brought to the subject. The task force identified the problem. Larry came up with some models that had to do with structural and procedural answers, taking the legislature out of the business of naming a disability and deciding what to do about that one, and then turning to the next one and naming another category and doing what do we do about that one, and instead creating a process that very critically involved parents from the get-go. So Larry was kind of a radical thinker, and the ideas that he developed were radical ideas.
My dad was kind of very good at thinking things through and planning ahead and imagining like possible outcomes, like if we have this, then what will happen, like in this situation, what's not working right now, and what could be different, how could we change it. So he was good at looking at examples of what had happened and what had not worked well in the past.
To this day, I think there's a lot of people in the school district world who regret some of the steps that Larry insisted on in his models, namely having parents at the team meetings and parents having the right to appeal to independent, objective adjudicators.
You know, it was incredibly important as a tool to make sure that students with special needs had the access to the services that they deserve, but also to really make sure that we in the state of Massachusetts were kind of being clear about what our values are around giving every student the right to equal access to education. 3
years into that, I get a call from Larry, whom I'd met in legislative days. He said, let's have lunch. Sit on a park bench. He said, you know, I really think we could make a law firm. And we could make I don't want to make it a specialty shop, just disability law, but let's make a general practice. Let's just do it. We can do this. He said, yeah, and came around and we did it, and it turned out to be a great thing. He was brilliant in that way. He knew what could work.
My father talked about his work all the time. He introduced me to his young clients when I was a kid. He had an incredible stash of thank you notes and drawings from kids and art projects that kids had done in his office. He remembered every client, every child's name. He followed up with them for years after they graduated from elementary school or high school. I think he had an incredible memory, and I think that he kind of used that skill and put so much energy into just keeping in his head the specific experience of every kid and every family that he worked with.
You would walk into his office, and it was just such a testament to what an impassioned advocate he was for his families. It was, you know, the walls were covered with, you know, pictures from children and photographs, gifts that he had gotten from his clients over the years. It was really quite touching.
And like meeting clients for the first time or something like that, he would try to start off with some jokes or something like that, just to make people feel more at ease.
He had a case involving a SPED director whose family was of Italian descent. So they have a meeting. He brings in a plate full of cannolis. That's how they begin the meeting. And some sort of espresso coffee as well. They settle the case. So there are a lot of different ways. And Larry was a master of many of them.
I think he'd said before, like, you should try to live life, like try to live as if every day might be your last day.
Never, ever stop. We have to have the energy to keep going. We have to dig into the crevices and finding out what's wrong and then hammering away at those things.
That impacted me, and I learned that alongside working with him. So I just think some of those pieces and just who he was and what he brought to our state and to the world, to special education, is something that will continue on.
He knew that he wasn't going to be around forever, but he wanted to make sure that there'd be people to carry on his work.
He was a incredibly caring and involved dad. I think that was something that also was incredibly important to him.
He was kind, compassionate, a real gentleman. I remember thinking the phrase salt of the earth came to mind when I first met him.
I worked very hard to make sure that every child, first of all, every child with special needs would receive have access to a full range of services. The law passed in 1972. Martha Ziegler, who was someone who moved to Massachusetts, she was an English teacher and had a daughter who was autistic. She became the leader of the parent lobbying group, and it was called the Coalition for Special Education, which later became the Federation for Children with Special Needs.
Saw him only once in that last week. And I kicked myself for not having seen him more, but there it was. I did get to see him, and I talked to him. And I told him how grateful I was for his friendship and his collegiality. And I think the path that we lucked into together couldn't have been better for each of us than it was. So I'm really very grateful for all that led us into that path. So rest in peace, Larry.
Hi, my name is Elizabeth Bostic, and I am currently a board member of the Federation for Children with Special Needs. It is my honor to present Mike Weiner with the 2022 Founder Award. Mike is a professional financial advisor in the Commonwealth Financial Group. He assists these families by creating comprehensive financial plans designed to support the needs of the entire family. Mike spent many years on the board of the Federation, giving of his time and talent to help many, many families. Tonight you will meet Mike and hear from his son Zachary, who is a 33-year-old man with developmental delays. Despite the challenges that Zach must face each day, he shares the fight and passion for life his father and mother Susan have instilled in him.
My name is Mike Weiner. I live in Medfield, Massachusetts. I've lived there for the past 37 years with my wife, Susan, raised our two sons there. And I became affiliated with the Federation probably about 13 or 14 years ago now. And the reason was that my son, Zachary, who has special needs, who's now 33, was fortunate enough to get a wonderful special education at a school on Cape Cod. And I realized at the time that the reason that he got that opportunity was because of the special education law that exists in the Commonwealth, and that the Federation was instrumental, along with some other attorneys and advocates, in getting that law passed. So this was my way of saying thank you to the Federation and giving back for the wonderful benefit that my son got because of that law. I actually went to the Federation and asked if I could serve on the board. The Federation has a great impact to any family that wants to take advantage of the resources that the Federation provides. It's a difficult thing to navigate, special education, and the districts, depending upon where you live, are either welcoming, sometimes not welcoming, sometimes ambivalent. So the benefit that parents get by accessing the resources and educating themselves is they become strong advocates for the services that their children are entitled to. And if they get the appropriate services and they get them early, it can make a lifelong impact on those children. And I've experienced that. Every time we challenged Zach, he stepped up and he tried. He didn't always succeed, but he always tried, and it's still the case today. I had a background in finance, and I said, I'm going to develop a practice where I'm going to help families understand how to prepare financially, how to understand how the adult system works and how the benefits work and so forth. And I made a promise to myself that anyone that came across my threshold, I was going to help. I look at it like this. As a parent, I'm not going to live forever. And what I teach my children is really going to be my legacy, right? What resides in my children's heart, in their spirit, in their character, is really a reflection of my wife and how we raised our children. And I think very similarly to what I do in trying to support our families. I feel that when I see that a family has benefited from something that I may have helped them do, and their child has now taken another step forward, to me, that's the way to be remembered.
My name is Zach Weiner, and I'm living in Brookline. When I think about what he's done to help me along the way, I wouldn't have done anything if it was for him to help me, because of what my parents and him, my life wouldn't be like it is today. When I wouldn't be happy. Congratulations, Dad. I'm real proud of you.
Congratulations, Mike Weiner, recipient of the 2022 Founders Award. Roxanne is a Boston native, and she was educated in the Boston public school system. Throughout high school and college, she worked and interned for the Massachusetts Rehabilitation Commission. This experience afforded her the opportunity to work at Lotus Development Corporation in the Human Resources Department, where she implemented changes so that all job descriptions were in accordance with the Americans with Disabilities Act, also known as ADA. Early on, she saw the need for services for families similar to hers, and she started speaking for the Department of Public Health under the name of Joy of Faith, free advocacy, information training, and other help. Roxanne was recruited to work for the Federation for Children with Special Needs, where she worked for 4 years as the Greater Boston Regional Coordinator for Family Ties, a statewide information and support network for the families of children with special needs. Roxanne is joined by her 2 beautiful daughters, Faith and Ebony, who embody their mother's strength, spunk, and advocacy.
My name is Roxanne Hope Chandler. I'm from Boston, Massachusetts. Currently, my position is at the Department of Public Health. I reached out to the Federation for Children with Special Needs when she was 2 years old to try to get some guidance around services in the school system. And I met a lot of people. And eventually I started working for the Federation when I was recruited by Sarah Miranda, who actually jumped in front of my car as I was driving down the street saying, "You must come work for us." I started volunteering in the community, doing a lot of work, and she heard about me and really wanted me to become part of the team, and I've been forever grateful for it. When I first started working for the Federation, I worked for Family Ties, and the job is to support other family members and supply resources and help them navigate the system. And it was a natural thing for me, but I didn't see that within myself. And it's so much about how we show our children. I remember my youngest daughter saw another family who had a child with Down syndrome who was buying diapers somewhere in a store. And she said, "Mom, you have to go help that family." Like, she noticed another family who might need my services and help. And that meant a lot to me because my child saw the work that I was doing. And the funniest thing about that is that when I went up to the family and said, "Hi, my name is Roxanne," they immediately knew my last name. And it reminded me about a lot of work around cultural brokering, because this family did not speak the same language as I did. And it wasn't that trust. They didn't know who I was. So they never returned my call. And my role was to supply information and resources to them. So it really made me think about ways to cultural broker and work with families who might speak different languages, who might look different from myself, who have a hard time accessing services. The community needs us to be involved because sometimes we make assumptions. And I think there are populations of people who are totally under-resourced. I understand the intersection of race and disability. I live it. But I also know there are people who don't look like me, who might have six figures, and people assume that they have the information and knowledge, but they really don't. I have been supported by the Federation many different ways. I think one of the things is all the different roles that I had at the Federation were a part of my education. It brought a new understanding to like foster care system, towards education, early childhood. It really helped me be the person I am today and helped me think about health in a public health way and the resources and supports that some families aren't receiving. One of my fondest memories of working with Pat Blake, unfortunately, was like towards the end. So Pat did a lot of things for the staff there and the employees there. And my background started off in human resources before I had my children. And she really cared about the staff.
I think that my mom was more surprised that she got nominated than I was, because hearing Advocate of the Year, I feel like just kind of screams Miss Roxanne Chandler. Like, it's my mom, it's what she does. She's the mother for all and is always willing to lend a helping hand. So she's very deserving.
Do you love Mama?
Yes.
Are you proud of her?
Yes. Thank you for always being an amazing role model.
Roxanne, we thank you and congratulations on receiving the 2022 Patricia Blake Advocacy Award.
Thank you for making the life-changing work of the Federation possible. Your support impacts tens of thousands of families and children every year. Many families count on the Federation for information, resources, community, training, networking, family engagement, and healthcare information vital to caring for a loved one with special needs. Making a financial donation is one important way to ensure that every child receives the support they need to succeed. Please support the Federation for Children with Special Needs by donating today by scanning the QR code on your screen or visiting fcsn.org/donate. The silent auction will close soon, so don't forget to go to fcsn.org/Gala 2022 to participate. Thank you for joining us for the FCSN 2022 Gala, celebrating the special education revolution and 50 years of Chapter 766.